All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Arize click-through rate workshop. Um, like I said, before we begin, I would encourage everyone to sign up for a free Arize account. The link should be in chat, where you can sign up, follow along as we explore and troubleshoot our click-through rate machine learning model. So a pro tip before we begin: I will be reading chat for questions, so feel free to post and ask questions as we move throughout the workshop. I like to keep things pretty informal, so feel free to interact. You can also raise your hand, and that will let me know. I can let you into kind of the feed where you can ask your questions kind of directly. So let's kind of get started. So a quick introduction. My name is Dat No, and I am a solutions architect here at Arize. Formerly, I was a data scientist and built lots of ML infrastructure. So when it comes to building models, productionizing them, and troubleshooting, I've definitely paid my dues. Now, why was Arize founded? Well, the founders wanted to make the lives of ML practitioners easier, and fundamentally, fix a problem that kind of has yet to be addressed in the AI space, which is ML observability. Now, here is kind of the crux of the problem. All models degrade, and they all degrade over time, and they degrade for many reasons. And it's not easy to know, one, when a model is failing a business, and more importantly, two, know where to find the issue once you determine that the model needs to be fixed. So, how are teams handling the problem today? Well, the answer is not well, or not as effectively as they could be. Usually, model issues are reported to ML teams from business stakeholders that they serve. This could mean that the issue could have persisted for months until the issue, finally became apparent. Once the ML team finally gets notified of the issue, they can spend days, if not weeks, troubleshooting model problems. Everything from data munging to rerunning models, looking for one-off bugs to running one-off Jupyter notebooks. So this is really the crux of the issue. So here are the biggest problems that the industry is seeing today when it comes to observability. I'm sure many of you on the call have experienced one or heard of if not many of these issues. And today we'll be troubleshooting a few of those issues in minutes instead of days. Now, today's workshop is about click-through rate, or CTR. Now, what is click-through rate and where is it used? So, click-through rate is a measure to gauge how well your keywords, ads, marketing content are performing in the real world. For those of you who are part of a marketing team, you know that the better you can market your product to your target audience and your customer segment, the better. Your engagement with the potential customers will be much stronger, and hopefully, resulting in an increase to your company's overall revenue. But what happens when your click-through rate model underperforms, right, in a marketing team? Well, it's not that you just have lower engagement on the marketing front, reducing the overall revenue, and not to mention that probably the marketing team will probably be breathing down your neck, but you could end up wasting thousands, if not millions, of dollars in ad spend if you're doing a lot of marketing and there's a lot of volume. If you're not targeting the correct customer segments, it can generally be stated as an increase in costs. Services like Google Ads, for instance, will charge more if the ads that are being served are not relevant to the user. So you as an ML engineer have a huge impact on the business. So let's get down to the workshop. Now imagine for a second you are an ML engineer responsible for your company's click-through rate model. When you first built the model and deployed it to production, everything was good. Everything was running pretty smoothly for the first few months, and then suddenly the marketing team kind of calls you, slacks you, and tells you that something is off with the model, and that ad costs are going pretty high up, and that the click-through rate has dramatically deteriorated, and that they've kind of paused the ad campaign to avoid increases in the company's cost per click, or CPC. So what is click-through rate? Simply put, click-through rate is kind of the number of clicks that you've got from whatever your marketing content, an email, an ad, out of kind of the total number of impressions, or who's kind of seen that ad, right? So if you imagine in your own life how often you click an ad, it's got to be a pretty dang good ad for you to click it, or something that you're very interested in, or something that really catches your eye. So a little context on today's kind of workshop. So today we'll be doing some performance tracing. So a little context on the performance metric we'll be using. So for our click-through rate model, we will be using log loss. Now, log loss is a pretty standard evaluation metric when predicting rare events, such as click-through rate prediction, right? Because you imagine out of how many ads you've seen, how many do you generally click? And according to Google, it's maybe 1 to 3%, kind of in that range. So for you data scientists in chat, interesting to note that log loss, the metric, is actually a slight twist on something called the likelihood function. In fact, log loss is actually the negative log of likelihood function. So I won't get too deep in the mathematics behind the metric, but just know that, like, in general, the higher the log loss, the worse our model is performing. So let's kind of begin the workshop, discover, triage, and ultimately fix our CTR model. So some of you may have already seen the platform in kind of previous workshops, but I'm going to kind of take it as maybe we have new people in the chat who kind of haven't seen the platform before. But when you first log in, you kind of get this really nice view, a list of kind of all your models, and kind of the monitors behind those models. This can include, performance monitors. Are we seeing performance degradation or are we not? Are we seeing drift in our models? And of course, data quality. On the left-hand side, you can see kind of our menu options. We can see kind of our models, our dashboards, monitors, and so forth. Kind of in space settings here, if you are looking to send your own data and test your own Arize account, you can grab your API key here in space settings, here and here. I just wanted to quickly kind of point that out. And so the model we're going to be working through today is the click-through rate model. So we're going to set this model up right now. So what I'm going to do is actually click inside of that model, and I'm going to, set up my model. So what I'm actually going to do is click set up model here. And then here I'm going to select my baseline. So what does a baseline mean? So a baseline is essentially for our monitors and drift, we want to set like kind of essentially a benchmark to tell us, what should our model in production be basing its kind of, drift metrics off of, or where should our baseline be? So here we're actually going to choose our pre-production data set, aka essentially it means the thing that trained your model. So here we're actually going to choose our training version. Here we could use our validation set as well, but for the purposes of the demo, we're going to use training. I'm going to click next. It's going to send me here. We're going to leave data sets pretty default here and just kind of go next. Next, it's going to take us to our model performance monitoring. So this is essentially what we'd like to monitor. Here, I'm going to actually change the default metric to log loss like we discussed. And now every data science team is going to be different to what we set, essentially what the threshold is for our performance. In this case, I know it should be 5. but every business unit and data science team should kind of explore that, kind of as it pertains to your use case. The positive class here is going to be click. I'm going to click next. And yes, I want to leave on monitoring for drift, data quality, and performance. And we're going to click next here. I'm going to, you have the option to send an email to yourself kind of in your own platform if that's something you wish to do. And I'm going to click finish here. So now my monitor is kind of set up. And if we kind of go back to our main demo, we can see now that we have our monitors kind of lit up here in green. And so I'm actually going to take a detour here. I'm actually going to log into a different account and go through a different, or it's a click-through rate model. However, the data in there is a little different. For the purposes of storytelling, I'm going to go through that. So feel free to follow along. Your data, of course, may be a little different. All right, so if you're in your kind of model, I want you to kind of click into your performance. We can look at one of our monitors. So here we're going to look at one of our performance monitors. This one's set to accuracy. I'm going to quickly change this one to log loss. Okay. So this is kind of the issue that we want to triage. So the marketing has told us that something has gone wrong with our click-through rate model, and our log loss is significantly higher than what we normally expect. So here you're going to want to actually troubleshoot the model, and it's going to take you into your performance tracing window. Now, here we can see our performance over time. In this case, it's our log loss over time. Here we can see our confusion matrix. So let's kind of break this down. So, this is kind of our guess. If someone clicked and we expect them to click, that's obviously a true positive. If we didn't expect someone to click and, they didn't click, great, that's a true negative. And of course, a false negative would indicate that, maybe we didn't expect them to click and they indeed, or we expected them to click and then they didn't click. A false positive would indicate we expected them to click, but they did not. But I wanted to kind of point your eyes to this down here. So here we can see our histograms. And so what these histograms represent is the height represents volume. And the color here, red would indicate kind of bad, where our log loss is high. And yellow would indicate where our log loss is kind of what we expect. And you can think of this as breaking down our model's performance at not only the feature level, but at segments inside of those features. And so that's kind of an overview of the performance tracing. We can do cool things like do a comparison. We can choose, different time windows and compare against, not only different environments that we have, but different versions as well. But let's kind of get back to the workflow. So here I want to compare my production, what I'm seeing in production, to what I'm seeing in training, to really figure out what's the issue here. So immediately, if I look inside of my confusion matrices, I can see that my false positive rate in my production window is much higher than my false positive rate in training. What does that mean to the business? What does that mean to marketing? It means that, we expected certain users to click on our ad because we thought it was relevant to them, when in fact they did not click, right? So if you think about it, the relevancy of our ads is kind of going down. And what does that mean to the business? It probably means our cost per click, if we're serving ads to the wrong people, is going up. So you definitely want to triage that and figure out why. So the first thing that kind of immediately pops up, and so we kind of organize the data for you and tell you kind of what you should be looking at and what's most likely making the most impact on your performance. And this metric is called the performance impact. You could also sort by feature importances. So if your team, calculates SHAP or LIME or any other kind of explainability values that you can send in the platform, you can obviously sort by that as well. And so here I'm actually going to click and open up kind of domain. And this, immediately is screaming to me that, hey, my model has never been trained on this kind of this segment new site. And I'm seeing a significant log loss, almost 10.4, which kind of lets me know that if my model's never been trained on it, I need to investigate what is new site. Why hasn't my model been trained on it? Is it something that my model should be seeing? Should we maybe block sending ads to this site? So a cool thing we can do is actually we can actually exclude this segment as a filter and see what it does to our model. So if we do that, we can see that our log loss has come down significantly from above 5 to now we're back down to maybe 0.3. But there's still some issues kind of going on here. And so if I look inside of the next thing and the next issue with performance impact, I see something with device. And so here I can see tablets. So I can see that I have, a histogram bar for both my production and my training set. So it's very clear to me that my model has been trained on tablet devices. So this one's not as simple as, oh, maybe I need to do a retrain on a specific segment because my model hasn't seen it. So how do we triage this? How do I explain why this is happening? So what I can actually do here is I'm actually going to go into the explainability tab here. And what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to add a comparison similar to what we just did in the performance tracing tab. And so next, so what are we looking at here? So here we can see our explainability or feature importances kind of plotted against each other. So here we're using kind of normalized SHAP values. And so right now we're comparing, our production set to itself. But I want to filter the first kind of data set on device. And what device? Let's filter on tablet and see what our model is telling us. If I filter on tablet, we can clearly see kind of keywords down here. There's something going on with keywords in tablets because my model kind of normally is using it a lot for, it's using it as a predictive value. But in the cases where I have tablets, it's not super predictive. So what do I do next? Well, I'm actually going to go back into the performance tracing tab and take a look at keywords. So here I can drill down. And if I look at my drift kind of over time, I can see, maybe I'm getting some drift, maybe I'm not. But let's filter down on device equals tablets. And immediately I can see what's happening. So here I'm kind of getting a significant amount of drift for keywords, which means either the keywords that are coming in with my tablet devices, either they don't match or are kind of nowhere near where I was seeing those keywords at training time. So essentially there's a stark difference between training time keywords and what we're seeing in production. So immediately and actionably, I know I need to investigate and understand why. And so here we can see kind of nothing has really changed. So what that's telling me is I really need to look at, as a data scientist, why in production these keywords are so starkly different from what I expected at training time. And so so here from just the performance tracing tab, I know two things. The first one is that I have a new segment that I need to train on or completely block out from the pipeline. And that was new site kind of .com. And second, I know that I had an issue with tablet users, right? And so we drilled down and we figured out that the keywords associated with tablets are kind of off. So immediately and actionably, I know exactly what to do next. And so that's a fairly high overview of the platform, just performance tracing. There's of course things that we didn't cover. We do the same thing kind of with Drift. We kind of skipped over dashboards, but really quickly, dashboards are exactly what it sounds like. Here you can plot kind of visualizations that are kind of bespoke and kind of unique to your business. And so that's kind of dashboarding. We went over explainability. So just kind of, in conclusion, Arize really strives to strike three major pillars, right? The first pillar is, let's proactively. Are the workshops also recorded? Yes, Alim, they are recorded, and you can kind of watch them later. But Arize really strives to strike three main pillars. The first pillar is really, let's proactively surface issues, before they happen, before our marketing team kind of tells us, hey, something is wrong. If you think about it as a data scientist, as an ML practitioner, you want to build trust with your stakeholders, right? And it's really hard to build that trust when the model is either kind of underperforming or it kind of goes awry or silently fails. It's better if we catch those issues rather than our stakeholders catching those issues. And the second pillar is really, once you find those issues, knowing where and when and why those issues are happening and triaging them very quickly is extremely important. And all this contributes really to the third point. And the third point is really to make our ML ops and ML practices better so that, machine learning models can work better for us humans. And so I know that, the data, if you followed along, the data might look a little different. We're definitely going to update that data inside of the accounts pretty soon here. But if you folks in the chat walk away with something from this workshop, I want you to walk away with, one, what is ML observability and why is it so important, not only to the ML engineer, but to the business? And two, what is Arize and what is the platform and, what is the problems we're trying to solve? And lastly, number three, I hope you learned something kind of new today, maybe something in the CTR space or in the marketing space as well. So it looks like we kind of have 5 minutes left. If there's any kind of questions, comments, concerns, if you want to raise a hand, come on stream and ask, I'm more than happy to do that as well. I'd like to open up the floor for that. Yes. Also, join our Slack channel as well. There's a lot of great content. I'm on there. A lot of us are on there to answer questions, really just to educate as well. If there are no kind of questions, I just want to thank everyone for kind of spending the time with me to go over the Arize click-through rate workshop. And yes, we also have the lounges open, so come join us for networking. Thank you very much. My name is Datno. Thank you for attending.